All right, I'm gonna do something kind of different, try something new each week where one time a week I either get an online coaching client or an in-person client with me, and it's kind of like ask the trainer a question, because I feel like a lot of clients have the same question, so maybe I can help a lot of people. A client asked me a question about fitness nutrition and I'm just gonna answer it. Very, very simple, right? So I have Brandy here with me today. She is a in-person Kickstart client of mine, and she's gonna ask me a question. Basic, simple, here we go. So what would you like to ask me?
So I know my biggest struggle is obviously nutrition. So I just kind of want to know your input on maybe some advice or any tips you have for maybe somebody like me who doesn't like the chicken breast bland with a side of broccoli every day. When you're having such a low calorie count, how do we, I guess, juggle the balance between having something that's nutritious and high volume, low calorie, and not being miserable? Because that's my biggest struggle.
So you're saying like you feel like when you diet or you're in a fat loss phase that you feel like you have to suffer, or you feel like you get bored because you
bored is a good, bored, eating the same things.
So how do you prevent boredom and eating the same things?
Without being bland, still have the flavor, the variety, but still staying in that fat loss, low calorie.
Okay. There's several different ways I can go about this, and first of all, you have to know that, fat loss phase, or if you're trying to lose weight, you have to be in a calorie deficit. So you have to burn more than you intake. Does that mean that we have to eat boring foods that we don't like? No. No. So my first, tip is to not adopt a diet or eat foods that you don't want to eat, okay? Now, on the flip side of that, are we gonna be able to eat pizza, burgers, cookies, chocolate, brownies every day and lose fat? Well, maybe, but probably not realistic. So, one thing I try to tell people is maybe first tip would be decreasing your meal frequency, because then that would allow, I think I have you on 1400 as an average, is to decrease the amount of meals in your day, giving you a lot more flexibility for food choices. If you wanna, say go out to dinner tonight at a restaurant and eat a burger that's, a 600 or 700 calorie meal, maybe earlier in the day you also have just one meal at 300 to 500 calories or whatever it is. So does that make sense? Like decreasing the meal frequency versus, 1,400 calories a day. If we're eating, 5 times a day or whatever the old rule used to be, then you're only getting 200 to 300 calories a meal, and that's not very much food, you guys. I mean, so that would be my first tip, is to decrease the meal frequency.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's okay.
The second tip would be, I think a lot of people look at it as a day-to-day calorie count, where if you look at it more as an overall during a week or a couple weeks versus just every day hitting 1,400 calories, and knowing that you can kind of adjust, where if you go over, say you have 2,000 calories today, the next day that maybe you need to eat a little bit less.
So it's not all or nothing in one day.
It's not all or nothing in one day. It's always data over a period of time, and I think we get stuck into the every day I have to eat this amount of calories, where that's not the case. It's, fat loss happens over time, so it's going to be a period of, weeks even to be in that deficit versus looking at it from a day-to-day. Of course you need to try to plan it out a little bit. If you're going to go out this weekend and you're going to go out to dinner, or you're going to have some drinks, maybe you go a little bit lower during the week to kind of, make up for that, to even it out. But I also think you have to be pretty flexible with your food choices too, and learning how to fit certain foods in and stay in a deficit. But I had discussed with you at some point too, I don't make the rules, and we do have to adopt a more whole food
Mindset almost.
A more whole food mindset. Doesn't mean you have to give up your favorite foods by any means, but it's kind of like you got to pick and choose. Like, do I want to waste calories on alcohol this weekend, or would I rather have the pizza or the burger? Or like today, if you want to go out with friends tonight, I know that I got to keep it a little bit lower from a calorie standpoint during the day so I can enjoy myself at night. So there's ways to do it.
Yeah.
Without
being miserable.
Without being miserable, yeah. I think the first thing you got to do is not eat foods you don't want to eat. I guess another thing I would say is like hot sauces and flavored seasonings are always a good thing to help make your food less bland and boring. But then I'm going to be like a little bit of a devil's advocate here, because I think that you got to keep things simple too. Most of the time, not all of the time, but I think you have to have a few core meals that are mostly whole food choices, that you're going to be able to eat a lot of volume, hit your protein goals, and then kind of like 80-20 rule, where you're not being super restrictive, but you also know that you have to kind of give and take a little bit on the nutrition piece.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Does that make sense? So I hope that answered a lot of your questions, and if you have any other questions, of course, just shoot me a message or drop a comment or whatever. So I hope this was helpful, and I know that if one client has a question, a lot of people have a question, so I will see you next time. All right, that was